I am Scott Sherman. I'm the mayor of Winona, Minnesota.
Awesome. Are you originally from Winona? If not, where are you from?
I grew up in Eagan, Minnesota, and came down here in 1992 to go to Winona State University, and left in 95 to move back to Eagan, and then relocated to Winona in 2002. So I've been here for about 25 years full.
What are your favorite hobbies?
Favorite hobbies, number one would probably be hanging out with my family. I have a 1 and a 3-year-old as well as a 20-year-old. And then I really enjoy cycling. I would love to be able to do it more often. I tend to go in spurts. I'll do like 4 or 5 days in a row, and then take a week off, and then get back on the horse again. So I enjoy being outdoors. So those types of things, regardless if it's running, hiking, cycling, or just playing in the yard, those are the things that I enjoy doing.
Awesome. What are some of your favorites in life? Examples include music, movies, books.
Good question. I am not an avid reader other than news for the most part, but I do enjoy a few books in particular. John Krakauer is one of my favorite authors, so I've actually read all of his books. And then I was a traveling sales rep for many years, so instead of actually reading, I would listen to audiobooks while I was out traveling, and the themes or the types of books that I generally were interested in were things like physics or astrology,
Astronomy?
Yeah, astronomy, physics and chemistry books, things like that. But then when it comes to movies, I do enjoy sci-fi. So I have always been a Star Wars fan, a Star Trek fan, so that kind of genre really appeals to me. But one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie from the 1990s, Al Pacino, Carlito's Way. I think it has one of the best love scenes I've ever seen in a movie in my life, and I enjoy that movie a lot. But in general, it's what's on TV is sports, Science Channel, and news for the most part.
Who inspires you the most and why?
I would say probably the most inspiring person in my life was my mother. She was an extremely hard worker, very kind. One thing I noticed after she passed, or that I recognized, is that she had no enemies that I ever heard of or ever met, or I never saw her in a terse conversation or have an argument with anyone. That to me is inspirational. She was a good person, and she was someone who worked really hard. So I have definitely developed a work ethic from my upbringing.
If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and why?
You're dead. I don't know. I would say it would probably be a physicist or a scientist. Albert Einstein comes to mind automatically, but there are, I think, things to be learned. Since I've become mayor, I've become more interested in political figures, and there are some people that I find interesting. I think Lincoln was very interesting. I've watched a few documentaries regarding his life and actually his life leading up to becoming president. He was a tough cookie. He fought against, I would say, against the tide a lot of times, in a time when it was definitely more difficult to do those things. So yeah, I don't know. It would be someone who's not alive today, I guess. It's just because that part of not having them anymore maybe makes it more enticing that I would want to hang out with someone that isn't here any longer.
What made you want to work in your current position?
You know, a lot of times when I hear people that have run for office or have thought about running for office, they're doing it because they don't like something that's happening. And that, to me, is fine. But in general, a lot of times when you're running because you don't like something, you're running on one issue, or you're running to fix one issue in your own mind. And that's not the case once you get into office. It is definitely something that is multifaceted. There are many different aspects of the community, even in a small, quaint town like Winona. But you know, the things that made me run for office were that I had other people approaching me and recognizing me as quote unquote a leader in their minds, and they were asking me if I had ever thought about running for office, and that wasn't something that I necessarily had ever aspired to do or had looked into in the past. But when I had enough people that I considered important in my life, or people that I respected, asking me if I would run for office, that started to change my mindset over a few years. And one of the things I did do is I did go to every council meeting for 2 years. I attended quite a few commission and board meetings as well, just to try and understand how the city worked, how the relationships worked between council and staff, and what those personalities were both on council as well as within city staff. And then you know, those were the things that kind of got me thinking about it. And then ultimately I had to get permission from my wife, and so that was probably the biggest hurdle to leap. It only costs you $45, I think, to run for office, to file to run for office, and so that wasn't a huge hurdle. But getting my wife to agree to it was something that was a multi-part conversation over a long time, and we were well aware of the time commitment that this would have. One thing we didn't understand or didn't see was that there would be a lot of scrutiny on me specifically, and then also that translates over to our family, and that has been difficult for us to try and stay private while still being in the public eye. Obviously, I am open to sharing my thoughts, my life with the community, but there are times where it's too much, and I need to not answer the phone for a minute, or let it wait and go to voicemail and call them back later. And one of the great things my wife did was she made a rule during meals: no answering the phone, no looking at the phone, and that has helped me kind of relax a little bit and make sure that I'm giving time where I need to most, and that's my family.
What are some day-to-day tasks in your position?
Sure. I would say probably the first thing every morning is I check my email. I check the mayoral email along with my other email accounts that I have for work and life and whatever else. But I probably check my mayor's email account about 20 times a day. You know, just check back, see if anything new came through, see if there's anything I can take care of immediately. It's funny, elected officials get a lot of junk email, and even though we have processes to try and eliminate that, there are quite a few things that, you know, like companies trying to sell you a street meter, or trying to sell you a new financial software or whatever, and that's not on the mayor necessarily. Those are generally for finance director, or streets department, or whatever it might be. And when it's appropriate, I forward those on. I do field calls multiple times a day, not only from constituents but also city staff. I've kind of worked it out. It's like a job in that, even though it's It only pays $10,778 a year. I do put a lot of time in on this. I'm lucky enough to have a full-time job that allows me to be flexible. And so, every day I'm probably having 2 or 3 meetings. I'm checking email a lot. I'm taking phone calls. And then there is the occasional Sunday night 11 p.m. angry constituent call that I have to take, and I generally do take those when I can. But there's a lot of meetings, a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of phone calls, and really just trying to. I find oftentimes what it turns into is just me getting that person connected with the right group, agency, nonprofit, business, person in the community, just to help them facilitate either the project or the processes that they want to see happen, and or to help network them. Oftentimes I'll get the same issue come up from multiple people, and I'll say, hey, have you ever talked to, or are you familiar with this? And a lot of times that's where my local knowledge comes into play, and I'm still learning every day. I'm meeting people every day still, and so that's a unique part of my daily work schedule as me.
What's your favorite part of your job? This can include both your marital job and your personal job.
Sure. I can be generic and say helping people, but quite honestly, those are the fun things. I find that the title itself, mayor, has I don't want to use this word inappropriately, but it has some power to it. And what I like to do, or what I hope I'm doing, is I'm empowering some people along the way. There are people who oftentimes will think that they don't have a voice, that they don't have an opportunity to speak in certain forums. And I feel like if I have the opportunity to listen to them, absorb what they're really trying to say, maybe ask a few questions along the way so I can understand where they're coming from a little bit better. Oftentimes I try to empower someone and tell them, hey, this is something that you can do, or something that you should pursue, and let me help you find the right people to do that. It's not always within the city of Winona. It's not always a city budget type thing. It's not always an aspect that the city has directive over, and that's an interesting part of it. A lot of times I'm just helping them find the right avenue to be able to amplify their voice or their process or their project that they're working on, and that's where I find probably the most value in what I do. There are, and I should mention this as well, I do love getting out, especially after the pandemic here. I tend to appreciate it a little bit more, but being in groups, being at events where I can meet a lot of people, those are always really fun for me. I get to do things like present a certificate to a person who turned 100, or I get to talk at some of the and answer questions at some of the nursing homes or older living facilities that we have in town here, and those are always fun for me because they do have, in general, those residents tend to have a different perspective than, let's say, a business person here in town, or my neighbor, or the reporter that's calling me, or whatever it might be. And those are really fun moments because, I'm the one who gets invited to present a certificate to a 100-year-old. That's really cool, I get to be Al Roker, or I forget the other guy's name, but I get to be him for a few minutes, and kind of just be there. And again, that's kind of where that mayoral title tends to have some value to it, and I find that a lot of children as well, as soon as they find out I'm mayor, they always give me the, oh, you're the mayor? And I don't know if it's because I don't look mayoral, or maybe I'm too young, or maybe I'm whatever, but maybe I'm more approachable than what they would think, or more available to them. But I think in general, being able to really talk with the constituents, being able to get out there to do fun things like that's probably my favorite part of the job.
What are your goals for the future?
I have quite a few goals. I would love, one of the biggest things that I'd love to see, and it's probably an unsolvable problem right now, but I would love to be able to reduce some of the divisiveness within our community. I think a lot of times in my position, I am a moderator. I'm a facilitator a lot of times, and having the opportunity to have now face-to-face personal conversations with people is often, I wouldn't say it's rewarding, but at the same time I think it's useful. There have, everything from like two neighbors complaining about each other or don't like each other. Sometimes, I have to get involved, or it's come to my level and it comes in front of me, and I try to help out in that regard. Sometimes I'm not the right person for that conversation, so finding someone else is helpful, but I would really like to see everybody in Winona understand that we're all neighbors, that this is a community that we can all be proud of, regardless of which direction someone may think it's going, left or right, up or down, backwards, forwards, whatever it might be. I think, if we can all just take a step back. I know we've all been through a lot in the last 2 years. We've dealt with things that we never thought we would have to deal with before, and I think that for whatever reason, you could say news, social media, politics, whatever, has created more of a divided community, and I don't like seeing that, because I've always thought of Winona as a community of people who truly do care for each other. We take care of each other. We extend our services, even sometimes when they're not needed. And I think that's a goal that I would love to see is if I can make small steps in those directions and help facilitate bringing people together a little bit more. I think I would feel very good about it at the end of my term, or at the end of my political career, or whatever it might be. I think that would be something that I could go to sleep at night, on my deathbed. I could look back and say I did that for a community, and I hope I am doing that, and I hope to continue doing that for a community.
What are you most thankful for in life?
My upbringing, my parents, my family, and now, honestly, this, while it has been challenging to be mayor during this time, a lot of tough decisions have been made. I find this as something that I feel like there's, going back to psychology class in high school, there's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the base one is safety, and then food, air, water, food, and then at the very tippy top of that pyramid is what they call self-actualization. And that self-actualization is when you feel like you've finally reached your potential. And I feel like in this position I'm being challenged to push my potential every day. So I feel like I have been able to achieve my potential in terms of who I want to be, what I want to do for our community, and I am constantly learning every day. And so it's very rewarding in that aspect, and it's made me appreciative of and humble in the fact that the people of Winona chose me as their mayor. They chose me as their mayor during a very difficult time for everyone, and it's something that I will forever look back on as something that I was happy to do, something I'm feeling good about. So.